On the frigid morning of January 17, 1986, the small town of Oak Ridge, Montana, awoke to news that would haunt the community for decades. 17-year-old Elizabeth Thornhill had vanished without a trace. The high school senior, known for her punctuality and responsibility, never arrived at school that Friday. Her bedroom window was found ajar, with no signs of forced entry, and her winter coat still hanging in the closet, despite temperatures hovering around 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Elizabeth was the eldest granddaughter of Jeremiah Thornhill, a reclusive and wealthy landowner whose sprawling 200-acre compound housed an extended family of nearly 30 people. The Thornhill family had settled in the area in the 1940s, gradually isolating themselves from the wider community while amassing considerable wealth through timber and mining investments. "She was just gone," recalled Sarah Thornhill, Elizabeth's mother, in a police statement. No note, no missing clothes, nothing taken from her room. It was as if she simply vanished into thin air. The initial search focused on the dense forest surrounding the Thornhill property. Local law enforcement, joined by volunteers from nearby communities, combed through snow-covered terrain for any sign of the missing teenager. Bloodhounds lost her scent at the property line, suggesting she may have entered a vehicle. Detective James Harmon, who led the initial investigation, noted peculiarities from the start. "The family seemed oddly resigned," he wrote in his case notes. "There was concern, certainly, but not the panic you'd expect from parents whose child had disappeared in freezing temperatures." More troubling was the family's resistance to police presence on their property. Jeremiah Thornhill, then 72, insisted that any searches of the compound be conducted solely by family members, citing religious privacy. After considerable negotiation and a hastily obtained warrant, authorities were permitted limited access to the main residence and surrounding buildings, but found no evidence of Elizabeth's whereabouts. 3 days into the search, another disappearance rocked the community. Elizabeth's 16-year-old cousin, Michael Thornhill, was also reported missing. Like Elizabeth, he had vanished without taking any belongings, leaving no note and giving no indication of his plans to anyone. If you want to follow more cases like this, that shake entire communities and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any investigation. The dual disappearances of Elizabeth and Michael Thornhill prompted authorities to escalate their investigation. What initially appeared to be a possible runaway case now suggested something more sinister. Detective Harmon requested assistance from the State Bureau of Investigation, bringing additional resources and expertise to Oak Ridge. The first significant lead came from Elizabeth's school friend, Jennifer Carson, who revealed during questioning that Elizabeth had seemed increasingly distressed in the weeks before her disappearance. "She kept saying she couldn't do what they wanted her to do," Jennifer told investigators. She said her grandfather had plans for her that made her sick to her stomach. When pressed for details, Jennifer admitted that Elizabeth had been vague, only mentioning that it had something to do with family tradition and that she was expected to join with her cousin Michael in some capacity that Elizabeth found deeply disturbing. Meanwhile, interviews with the Thornhill family yielded little useful information. Family members provided almost identical accounts of the days leading up to the disappearances, describing both teenagers as content and showing no signs of distress. This uniformity in statements raised red flags for investigators, suggesting coordinated responses. A breakthrough came 6 weeks into the investigation when a former family employee, groundskeeper Thomas Wilson, approached authorities. Wilson, who had worked on the Thornhill estate for nearly a decade before being dismissed in 1984, provided troubling insights into the family's internal dynamics. "Old man Thornhill runs that place like a cult," Wilson stated in his recorded testimony. "There's strange ceremonies in the old barn at night. I wasn't supposed to know about them, but I saw things. Kids dressed in white, paired off with each other, Jeremiah performing what looked like marriage rites." Wilson claimed he'd been fired after Jeremiah caught him observing one of these ceremonies. Before leaving, he overheard discussions about maintaining the bloodline and keeping the family pure. While his testimony was compelling, without physical evidence or corroboration, authorities could not obtain a more comprehensive search warrant for the property. The investigation hit numerous dead ends. Bank records showed no withdrawals from either teenager's accounts. Border crossings reported no sightings. Neighboring states were alerted, but no credible leads emerged. The Thornhill family grew increasingly hostile toward investigators, eventually hiring high-powered attorneys who effectively limited police access to family members. By summer 1986, the case had grown cold. Detective Harmon, however, remained convinced that the answers lay somewhere within the Thornhill compound, behind its high stone walls and secluded buildings. On April 3, 1992, more than 6 years after the initial disappearances, a young woman walked into the Oak Ridge Police Department, identifying herself as Rebecca Thompson. In reality, she was Rebecca Thornhill, a cousin of Elizabeth and Michael, who had herself left the family compound upon turning 18. Rebecca's testimony would dramatically reshape the investigation. According to her detailed statement, Jeremiah Thornhill had for decades enforced a family tradition of arranged marriages between cousins, purportedly to preserve what he called their sacred bloodline and to keep the family's wealth concentrated. When Thornhill children turn 17, they're told who they'll be marrying, Rebecca explained. Usually it's a first or second cousin. If they refuse, they face increasing pressure. Elizabeth refused to marry Michael. She was adamant. Rebecca revealed that Elizabeth and Michael had separately approached her in the weeks before their disappearances, both expressing horror at the expectations placed upon them. Elizabeth had been researching ways to legally emancipate herself, while Michael had been saving money from odd jobs to potentially run away. "I don't believe they left together," Rebecca stated. "They weren't close, and both were disgusted by the idea of marriage. But I do believe something happened to them after they refused to comply." Rebecca's most disturbing claim was that family members who defied Jeremiah's arrangements sometimes disappeared, only to be reported to the outside world as runaways. She recalled at least 3 other cases during her childhood where cousins who resisted the family traditions vanished, their names subsequently forbidden from family discussions. Armed with this new testimony, investigators obtained a comprehensive search warrant for the entire Thornhill property. On April 15, 1992, local authorities, joined by FBI agents, conducted an extensive search of the 200-acre compound, including ground-penetrating radar in selected areas. The search revealed a hidden room beneath the old barn, accessed through a concealed trapdoor. Inside, investigators discovered journals dating back to the 1950s, documenting Jeremiah's family vision and recording marriages between cousins. Most disturbingly, the journals contained entries about purifications, ritualistic punishments for family members who resisted. Leave in the comments, "Never give up on the truth if you believe all missing persons deserve to be found." A subsequent search of an area marked in one journal as the Garden of Remembrance uncovered human remains. Forensic analysis would eventually identify these as belonging to Elizabeth Thornhill, Michael Thornhill, and 3 other previously missing family members, all apparently victims of ritualistic killings. On June 7, 1993, Jeremiah Thornhill and 7 adult family members who had participated in the cover-up were arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy. The subsequent trial revealed the full horror of what had transpired on the Thornhill compound for nearly 4 decades. Forensic evidence indicated that Elizabeth and Michael had been drugged, confined in the hidden room for several days, and ultimately killed when they continued to refuse the arranged marriage. Medical examiner reports suggested they had been given a mixture of herbs and prescription medications that caused gradual organ failure, made to look like a suicide pact. Court documents revealed that since the 1950s, Jeremiah had enforced at least 12 cousin marriages within the family, creating a complex web of relationships that he documented meticulously. Children from these unions were raised to accept the practice as normal and sacred. The trial also brought to light the psychological manipulation employed by Jeremiah to maintain control. Family members testified about a system of rewards and punishments, isolation from outside influences, and religious indoctrination that characterized life on the compound. Many younger family members had been homeschooled and had limited contact with the outside world. On September 15, 1994, after a trial that captivated the nation, Jeremiah Thornhill was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. 6 other family members received sentences ranging from 15 years to life for their various roles in the murders and subsequent cover-up. One defendant, Martha Thornhill, Jeremiah's daughter-in-law, received a reduced sentence in exchange for her comprehensive testimony about the family's practices. The case led to significant reforms in Montana's homeschooling regulations and prompted a nationwide conversation about isolated religious communities. The remaining Thornhill children and teenagers, many of whom had been unaware of the full extent of Jeremiah's actions, entered therapy and foster care, beginning the long process of reintegration into society. Elizabeth and Michael's remains were finally laid to rest in the Oak Ridge Cemetery on October 23, 1994, nearly 9 years after their disappearance. The joint funeral was attended by hundreds of community members and surviving family members who had broken away from Jeremiah's influence. In 2010, Rebecca Thornhill established the Elizabeth and Michael Foundation, dedicated to helping young people escape from cult-like family situations and abusive religious communities. The foundation has since assisted over 300 individuals in building new lives away from coercive control. Elizabeth and Michael's refusal to participate in something they knew was wrong ultimately brought down decades of abuse, Rebecca stated at the foundation's opening. Their courage, even in death, saved future generations of our family from the same fate. The Thornhill property was eventually sold, the proceeds placed in trust for the youngest victims of Jeremiah's regime. The compound buildings were demolished in 2001, and the land returned to nature, a forest now growing where so much suffering once occurred. If you watch this far, it's because you care about these cases that mark families forever. Leave a comment saying, "I watched until the end," so I can get to know you and know who really cares about the search for truth. Like this video if you found this case as disturbing as I did, and share it with someone who appreciates true crime investigations that reveal the darkest corners of human behavior. Subscribe to the channel for more cases that explore the complex web of family secrets, cults, and the resilience of those who fight for justice, even when it seems impossible.